Ah, the sizzle of McDonald's sausage. It's enough to make you crave your favorite breakfasts. Enough to head over to McDonald's. Enough to make you really wish this commercial were scratch and sniff.
And if you're a sausage person, now get 2 satisfyingly savory sausage McGriddles, sausage biscuits, or sausage burritos for just $3.33. Or mix and match. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and former therapist with a background in counseling psychology. This podcast is for strong, high-achieving women who want more in their lives and relationships, who are ready to rise to the next level of growth, healing, and evolution. Nothing changes until you change. And when you change, everything else changes around you as a result. If you're done with feeling powerless within the chaotic and toxic dynamics in your relationship and don't even know where to begin with making changes, I've got you covered. I know you've tried everything, including counseling, watching hours of videos, and reading stacks of books on narcissism, and find that all it does is leave you feeling even more stuck and in the same place. None of these things work when you're living with a narcissistic spouse because the root causes of the symptoms are not being addressed. As with physical health, there is an emotional, physical, spiritual, and psychological component to healing and overcoming the problematic symptoms and pain you're facing every day in your life and relationship. If you're ready for a direct, no fluff, no nonsense approach to take you into your personal power and take back your life, you are in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast, ladies. Today we're talking about your health and the mind-body connection. This is partly brought about by my own health stuff that has come up that I've been dealing with, and thank the goddess, whoever invented medicine. I've always been anti-medicine, anti-drugs, all holistic, all natural, all my life. And I had to humble myself with this particular illness that I have developed, an autoimmune illness that I have had to take some medications to get it under control because I was in bed almost pretty much a whole month, not functioning, not able to do anything. So I am feeling grateful because I'm feeling more back to myself than ever. So I'm not just doing the medicine, I am also looking at my emotional health, really looking at the work I still need to do. Just because you exit these relationships doesn't mean that everything's rosy on the other side. And that's what can be kind of hard to grasp for women, I think, is the fear of what's on the other side. And that, yeah, it's hard. It's going to be hard. And you're going to have hard times. And so I have been doing another layer of my healing, really cleaning up my diet even more than I had before, cutting out gluten, cutting out dairy, eating all whole foods, eating more animal proteins when I used to be vegan and anti-meat. So I've had to really change the way that I've been doing things because obviously what I was doing was not working because I developed an autoimmune illness that felt like completely out of the blue. 1 month I seemed fine and then boom, I was not fine. It came on so quickly. And it did happen after a very stressful period, right? A very stressful period on many levels. And so that's why I want to talk about this. And I have worked with many women who are suffering with their health, who have autoimmune or have gut issues or whatever it may be. I just want to really start by saying you have to realize that it is very much connected to the stress that you're experiencing. Whether it's this relationship or another, it's the chronic stress. However, emotional stress, specifically when you're dealing with and living with a narcissistic partner, someone that is crazy making, someone that creates so much chaos and upheaval in your life, and so much inconsistency, up, down stuff, that creates psychological, but even more so emotional stress. And emotional stress is a major cause of physical illness, from cancer to autoimmune diseases. And if you want to learn more about that, you can look up Gabor Mate. He talks a lot about that in his book, The Body Says No. And so I'm revisiting that book because here I am, completely overhauled my life, and then I get knocked down by this, right? I can say I definitely was feeling sorry for myself there for a while, but I'm also trying to see it as it's a message and it's a reason for me to go deeper and to bring what I'm going through and learning and what I have gone through to you guys with my coaching and my programs. And because that's what, and the cycle was, if you've been in my program, It's a transformational program that radically shifts women's lives. And the reason why is because it came from my own experience, along with other women that I worked with. It was kind of a culmination of both. But fundamentally, it came from my own personal lived experiences. That's why the program is so transformational, because it's specific to women who are in those relationships. And so, just have a little check right now. Like, how are you feeling? Have you had any diagnoses? Have you had any really good testing done from a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath? I got so sick that my two naturopaths that I have worked with in town, I tried both of them, and both of them said, we cannot work with you until you take the medication, because there's a risk that you could have a stroke or heart attack. Because with this autoimmune, it was causing a lot of heart racing and irregular heartbeats, just to name a few of the symptoms, but that was the scary one. And so I had to humble myself and be like, okay, fine, I'll take the meds. Like, maybe this is the time supplements need to be put to the side. I've always been someone that's proactive, seeing the naturopath, doing the panel testing for my hormones. Like, I've been on top of it all. So, everybody around me knows that I'm a health freak a little bit, right? I'm very conscious of that. So for this to happen, it took me out and it surprised me, because I didn't realize when I was going through the stress that I was in survival mode, and that it was actually like destroying me from the inside. I thought I was dealing with it well. I did my walks. I ate well. I kind of got away from my meditation and my journaling and the things that I knew I needed to do for self-care. So this is really just me sharing a little bit of my own experience. So hopefully you can glean something from it for yourself. If you have any type of health issues where you're struggling, it may not be as severe as what I have had to deal with. Maybe it's gut issues or migraines or fatigue. It could be, you're always sick. It could be you have weight you want to lose, but you can't lose it. Or maybe you're dropping weight, or whatever it may be, you're achy and tired. Like, don't ignore that, because, it might not show up in a lab test right away. Like, I think for me, it was coming on before it showed up in the lab test, because I just haven't felt myself for quite a long time. And this particular type of autoimmune disease seems to come out of nowhere and knock you down. But I think it was kind of in the background there. And there's a few things that came about to bring it to the forefront. So really important to know, first off, is that it's in our 40s and midlife that shit goes sideways in our bodies. It's known for that. And it's because, and this isn't to say it's all downhill, because I don't believe that. I do believe if we are on top of our health, we're on top of getting our hormones checked, we're seeing a naturopath, we use medical care, like, traditional medical care when needed. But we also have to take ownership for our own health, because doctors are not going to help you. Like, when I was diagnosed with this condition, there was no talk about what do you do with your lifestyle, your stress, your wellness, your life, your nutrition, your mental health. Like, what are we going to do with this part aside from these pills I'm giving you? No, it's like, here's the pills. Hopefully the pills will put it in remission and you're good to go. If not, then it's surgery and it's this and it's that. But there was not one single mention of what can you do to actually heal the root cause of the autoimmunity, which I'm doing on my own, because you cannot just trust doctors. Now, they have a place, because like I said, if I hadn't gone in to see the specialist and got this diagnosis, I probably could have been even sicker, and it's something you can even die from. So I am glad for the medicine that luckily has not been harsh on me. I haven't had any bad side effects or anything. But it's not something I want to be on forever. So I have to take ownership of my own health path. And so that's what I encourage women to do that I've worked with. I used to work with women doing holistic counseling. So my therapy practice was based on holistic methods. So if you had adrenal fatigue or something like that, we would be looking at the emotional stress and what's going on in your body, how to simplify, how to, put it down to the bare minimum, to the essentials, right? I've had to do some of that with my own life and really take stock. And when you're in, this is a whole other level, right? When you're in one of these relationships, your body is in fight or flight all the time. It's like you don't know what's coming at you. And so when you're in your 40s, this stuff really starts to add up and take an effect. When you're in your 20s and 30s, maybe not so much, but it's like as soon as you hit your 40s or midlife and you have those perimenopausal shifts, The hormone shifts, that stirs everything up like crazy. And this is also the time of life when many women exit their marriages because we're starting to see what's not working. We are starting to see like, hey, this is not a joke. We are like halfway done with our life potentially, right? So how do we want our second half of life to look? Do we want it to be constantly miserable and in pain and crying in a horrible relationship? And then we start to awaken at this age. So a lot of divorces happen in the midlife phase. Our hormones are up and down, and then stress impacts every system in the body. So if you have any hormonal issues, or you do have perimenopause, or you're in menopause, everything that I have learned about these phases is that if you go into these phases in a lot of stress and you don't have a handle on any of it, then you're in for a lot of trouble with the menopausal stage. So I am trying to do everything I can to set myself up differently for that phase that is, I think it's sort of there. Like I think it's like hanging over me, the perimenopausal phase. And so it's also not uncommon for women at this age to get diagnosed with an autoimmune. And so if you are younger than in your 40s, then start doing something about it now and realize. And I also realize that we can try to do everything we can for our health as perfectly as possible and still not get healthy. So there is the mind-body component to health, right? It is how our mindset is, how we see things, the stories we tell ourselves, our belief systems. All of that impacts our health and well-being. So we have to look at all of it. It's not just about what we eat. It's also how we perceive stress. I'm quite sensitive to stress, I think, and it will impact me quite deeply. I won't be able to sleep if something's going on. So those are all things that snowball and add to a whole lot of health for women in those later years. And it's also important to know that it's not the occasional stressor, like the thing that, maybe it's a report you have to have due, or there's something you're doing in your business or your career that has a deadline, you're feeling the crunch or you're feeling a bit of pressure, but it has an end date, right? It has an end when it's done. Hopefully the stressor dissipates and you're able to go back to your balance, right? It's the ongoing stress that endangers our health. It's the stress that's like a hamster wheel, that there's no end to it. And so that could be in your career, or a career that you don't like, or a dead-end career, or a career where there is no end. It's just you feel like you can't get to the bottom of your email list or to-do list. And it also depends on how you're viewing it. So if you view that as I'm not successful, I'm not able to keep up with everything, then that's going to create stressors in the body, right? It's all in your mindset and how you choose to see the stress that also has an impact. And we also have to realize that stress, especially when it comes to psychological stress, it increases inflammation, it increases autoimmune activity, and it increases depression and anxiety. So we can't mess around with it. And as I said, I'm living proof that you could try to do everything right and still end up with something, right? I'm grateful it's not something worse, right? It's not nice. It's not a nice thing to have to deal with, but I do believe I'm going to heal it naturally with the help of a medication boost. But I do plan on taking this into my own hands to heal so that I'm not going to doctors and I'm not needing pills. That's my goal. So if you are struggling with health, if it's autoimmune, if it's digestive issues, if it's migraines, if it's whatever it may be, take ownership of that and don't just rely on doctors, and look at your living situation. Look at your environment. Look at your relationships. Look at your lifestyle. What are the things that you are doing for yourself that support your health, that support your well-being? I think that what can happen is that we get so stuck in the hamster wheel of life and in survival mode. We're raising kids, we're looking after the house, we're doing everything on our own. And we don't necessarily see what that stress is doing to our body, or we feel like we don't have any control over what that stress is doing to our body, right? So I have, from all of this, and it's happened before where I've had little health things come up, but never an official diagnosis. The things that always kept me in balance, they started going to the wayside when I became a single mom and financially supporting me and my girls on my own, taking care of everything in the home on my own, running my business, making sure my girls were good, taking care of my health, making sure I'm getting my walk. It's just balancing it, right? And then of course, where I want to place the most of my attention is on my clients and on those who are working with me. They deserve my full attention. So I know I have to be in a place of abundance in myself and in my life to be able to even come and do this podcast, because it's free, but it does take energy. It takes coming up with the topic, jotting some notes down and going with it. When I was really sick, I couldn't even fathom outputting that energy. That's how sick I was. And so I know I need to be in excess to be able to give to others, especially women who are in these relationships and women who are exiting them. And so I use this to give you the example of, where are you operating from? Are you operating from a deficit? And likely you are. And if that's the case, what do you need to do to start topping yourself up so you have a foundation? And this isn't about your partner. It's not about them. It's not about the toxic dudes out there that they're everywhere. It's about you taking personal responsibility for you and for what you allow in your life, for the boundaries that you set or don't set, for how you protect your peace and safety in your home, and for your kids if you have kids. You get to choose that. So I hope this has been helpful and it's given you something to think about. The whole connection between your relationship and your health is huge. It's huge. And just because you leave doesn't mean that all that's going to go away. And I know that sounds like a bummer, but getting out is just the beginning. And so that's the reason why right now I have just started divorce coaching practice. So I am actually helping women who are on their way out. They're at that last stage where they're getting stuff together to get out, or they have left and they're in those early phases of the separation and divorce process, which can be brutal. Let me tell you, it can be brutal. And even at that point, I thought I was doing a lot for my health, but now I can see I could have done more, definitely, to support myself. And I'm learning this the hard way now. So hopefully my lesson will be your wake-up call to get the support that you need, the specific support. Many women that come to coach with me will tell me they've done therapy, they have a therapist, they do all these things, but then they experience a massive breakthrough in one 45-minute session with me. And it's not because I'm special. I do have experience personally and professionally, but I also have the training as a counselor and a coach combined. And I combine that with just my own inner knowing of being able to pinpoint where women are getting stuck and help them to release that. And usually it's a really stuck thought on repeat that is causing the suffering. So we have to look at that. We have to look at the emotions. We have to look at what supportive things are you doing for yourself through this divorce and transition, because it's going to shake every single thing up in your life. And you're it. You're the one that's, just like you have been in the relationship, you've been the main person, as I say, a married single mother. That might not change, but there's other things that come about. And it's also just the grieving and the loss of it. It just is. It is, because I've never met a woman that said, I got married just so I could have enough and leave. We get married to have a life partner and hopefully raise our kids together and get old together. We don't just leave on a whim. The women that I know, that is not the case. We try literally everything to a fault, to the point where we run ourselves into the ground. So that is no way to be. That is no way to live. And then the kids, that's the version of you they get. So we have to take ownership for everything. Whatever your wake-up call is. Mine has been this health issue. This diagnosis has been a huge wake-up call for me. And so part of that is I'm pivoting into, like I said, the Empowered Divorce Coaching. And if you are interested in getting one-on-one coaching from me, I will put a link in the show notes of this episode, or you can always visit Headliner.app, and there's information there on how to do that. All right, so recap. If you're in your 40s, you really need to take this seriously. You really need to take all of this seriously. If you're having health issues, you need to get a handle on them now so they don't go and run away with you and end up with something worse. Many women end marriages in their 40s because we start to see that life is not joking. Like we have an expiry date, right? We have an expiration date. When the hormones are up and down, it creates a lot of internal upheaval in our system, and we need to find out what's causing it and really calm it down. And that stress affects every system in the body. And also to remember that emotional stress is a major cause of physical illness, from cancer to autoimmune to really anything. I think it was Mark Hyman, I believe it was, he said, I don't know if he said 85 or 90% of reasons we go to the doctor for physical ailments have a stress root cause. And so when we look at it that way, we need to take full responsibility for everything in our life that is causing us constant stress and anxiety, because it will eventually show up in the body, and I don't want that for anyone. All right, so that wraps up this episode, and everything that you need is in the show notes as far as working with me or programs or courses that I have available for you. All right, take care. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. If you love this episode, please take a moment to share it and leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're ready to take your next step, head to the link in the show notes to sign up for my latest free class. Also, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Awakening Women Official and join the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again in the next episode. Take care of yourself in the meantime, and I'll see you online.